It's time for quant versus verbal.
The final showdown.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Oh, we have to
talk about quant and verbal.
Okay. All right. So quant versus verbal. One of the most common questions we get. Where should I start? Should I focus more on the quant or the verbal? What do you think, Mike?
It won't surprise our lovely viewers that it all depends on the person. But let's talk in some generalizations. And one thing you might be surprised, maybe not so surprised to learn, is that a distinct majority of the people we work with come to us for quantitative help versus verbal help.
Yeah, at least they state that up front, and many of them end up only getting quant anyhow. But a lot of people state that they only need quant.
And then they end up needing verbal help as well, because once your quant outstrips your verbal, you want to bring them up to parity, because that's highly rewarded by the scoring algorithm.
Right.
But that said, we talk, in fact, we talk a lot of shit every day.
Yeah, most
We
days.
talk, we read, we write, we live, we're immersed in a world of language.
A verbal world, yes.
A verbal world, where even math professors only math a few hours a day.
Ooh, okay.
Yes,
All right,
there is a verb to math.
To math.
This is not a GMAT word, but it's an Apex word, because we math frequently.
Yes.
So the issue there is fluency. If you're already fluent in English, all the lessons you need to learn are much more easily attainable. Whereas with quantitative concepts, even ones you think you know, often there's more context. And so you need a longer time period and more contact density with them in order to absorb all the stuff you need to then be flexible with them the same way you're likely already flexible with the English language.
Right, well, I think a big part of that is that the verbal section is the verbal section, but the math section is math in English, right? They're not just equations. They're not just giving you specific mathematics problems per se. They're giving you word problems that are, wrapped up in math, or I should say math problems wrapped up in words.
Too true, and that goes both ways. There are quantitative problems, particularly on the critical reasoning, and a lot of times these aren't, here are some numbers, figure it out, but the cost of living index is growing more quickly than inflation,
right,
or than pensions, or something like that, where you have some sort of abstract inequality buried in a problem.
Yeah, they require mathematical reasoning. And just for all of our other viewers who might not be from Philadelphia, he meant buried in the problem. That's what that was.
Not buried?
Not buried, yeah.
Okay.
Although if you're in Philadelphia, don't spit out your water. Okay, it's okay to say buried, but...
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. So anyway, there's a lot of overlap on the GMAT, but especially on the quantitative side, a lot of the difficulty is puzzling out what you need to answer. Not doing the equation, but just saying, what the hell is this asking me for?
And this is something else that I feel like a lot of the other outfits, the other test prep factories, they don't really do enough, they don't do a good enough job, in my opinion, emphasizing what many of you may be thinking right now, which is verbal help and mathematical help with verbal for non-native English speakers.
Yeah.
Because there are plenty of students who come to Apex who are actually very good mathematicians, as it were, and it's the English that they need a little bit of help with, not as it pertains to the verbal section, but actually it's the English on the quant section that's difficult.
Absolutely, there's vocabulary, there's context, but what's really important here is that native speakers, non-native speakers pick up language differently. And even the way you learned English, if you're a non-native speaker, affects how we approach working with you on the verbal.
So if you're a non-native English speaker, don't be too concerned that that's a disadvantage, because something I like to point out to my students quite often is that the GMAT is actually created specifically for native English speakers. And a lot of the test itself is meant to trick native English speakers, right? And so coming at it actually from a non-native speaking background can actually help you kind of skip over all of the little traps that are set up for native speakers. So don't despair, all right? It's not that you're at a distinct disadvantage. You just have some different work to do to prepare.
Yeah, different advantages. Having access to secondary grammars, whether it's your native language or whether you took, say, Spanish in high school.
I'm fluent in emoji, actually.
I can tell that from your text messages. It's frankly disturbing.